Well, greetings, people of the internet. Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse. Today, I have the ultimate power in my home. So what does that even mean? Well, what it means, folks, is if you've been keeping up with the channel lately, you know I'm all gung-ho on converting Unky Joe's Playhouse and my home to running off of solar or renewable energy, whether that be wind, rain, whatever comes my way, all of the above, right? I've been ranting, going on about power prices. Those of you that live over in Europe or in the UK, you already know what I'm talking about. You've seen outrageous power bills. And slowly here in the US, power rates are going up as well. Plus, you know, our grid went down a couple of years ago during a snowstorm. That doesn't make you feel very comfortable, right? So I decided, instead of worrying about it, I decided it would make a great project and I was going to do something about it. So part and parcel of this series of videos is me converting over to solar. So I thought what I'd do is start small, right? And just build an emergency off-grid solar kit. And that's what I still plan on doing. But let me tell you, they're not cheap. Those little units you see for a couple of grand with a battery in them that'll give you, you know, a few hours of off-grid power are not a bad deal at all. So if you're in a pinch, you can go buy one of those. But if you're more like I am and you love the idea of building something from scratch or creating something, then these are the videos for you. But I digress. The point of this video today is I got to thinking of my live stream a few days or a couple of weeks ago. I have an idea through my my power company. I can go online and see how much power I consume in a day, in a week, in a month, in a year, etc. And they put it all in a nice little pretty graph because I have a smart meter. But I can't go down to the detail, the amount of detail that I want as to my power consumption. I mean, I pretty much know what the big consumers of power are, at least in Texas anyway. It's air conditioning. And even though I have very energy efficient mini split systems that I replaced years ago, because for that very reason, they're still not as economical on power as they could be. And they still are the devices that consume the most amount of power in a home, at least in Texas. Your mileage might vary. And then after that, it's things like lights and, you know, water heaters and stoves and that kind of thing. But what I'm really interested in is the nitty-gritty, the little stuff that nickel and dimes you to death. You know, death by 1,000 paper cuts, as they say. Stuff that you're not even aware is on and running in the background. Because one of the things about going solar, and if I decide to go this route and do entirely solar on my home, there are capacity limitations on solar. You know, if I want to power my house for a day just on solar, first of all, you only get about 6 or 7 hours of really good energy producing solar energy. Well, what do you do about the other 13, 14, 15, 16 hours a day you don't have any sunlight? Well, you have to run off of batteries or some other storage medium, or you're running off the grid. So this is not going to be a cure-all for everything, but the key to knowing how to properly size your solar system, before I digress again, is knowing how much consumption you are accumulating, what you're consuming, like anything else. And so I could have sat down and added up devices, but where's the fun in that? No. I decided instead to purchase, well, this thing. This is the Emporia VUE Smart Home Energy Monitor. Now, this thing is about $170. So you're going to have to decide for yourself whether all this data that you're going to get from this device is going to be worth that $170. But before I go and spend 20 or 30 grand on a solar panels and batteries are the most expensive thing, and I'm just pulling a number out of the air. You know I'm not going to pay that much for my solar. It would be handy to know how much power I'm going to need. So I picked one of these up, and mine has the 16 additional 50 amp sensors. They call them sensors. It comes with 2 clamps to go on your main power lead, your load 1 and load 2. And then in addition to that, this kit comes with 16 additional ammeter clamps that you can clamp onto your wire by your breaker and see how much power each circuit in your house is using, up to 16 circuits. And as you will come to see, it pretty much covered my panel with a couple of exceptions. The big current sucking devices that I really don't need to monitor, like my stove, that kind of thing. I didn't put one on there. And so what I'm going to do now is we're going to go install this in my breaker panel. Now, let me just say this, because I want to do it as politely as possible. If you are not familiar extremely well with electricity and safety and the National Electrical Code, and if you don't have any common sense, don't stick your hand inside of a panel that's either live or dead. Do yourself a big favor, call an electrician and have them install this for you. I don't recommend that anyone without formal training on how to get around an electrical panel wire this thing up. That's my disclaimer. And if you do it, you do so at your own stupid risk. If you burn your house down, it's on you, it's not me. You need to take this stuff very seriously. When you're going to be putting your hand into an electrical panel, you need to take all the safety precautions you can. I take this very seriously. This is not something that a DIYer should be attempting to do without prior electrical experience. So that being said, what we're going to do now is we're going to go install this thing into my panel. Now, I'm going to do, normally I would just turn off the breakers to the circuits I'm working on. Keep in mind, most panels at home are always live. You've always got power coming into your main big 100 or 200 amp breaker. And usually there's no way for you to shut that power off past before that breaker. That's usually controlled by a utility company and may require they come out and pull your meter in order to disconnect it. But a lot of you have disconnect switches outside by your meter, or you have a breaker like I do. So before I start this, what I'm doing is I'm walking out to my breaker panel outside and I'm flipping off my main breaker. And then I'm going to come inside, and only then am I taking the panel off of my breaker panel and then checking the voltages to make sure the panel is not live anymore. And then I'll go on with the installation of this product. So just so you know the sequence of events here. All right, so today is a big day. We're going to be installing the Emporia whole house electrical panel monitoring. So these are the components come in there. You get a quick start guide, you got your little transmitter, you have 8 sensors, 50 amp sensors in here, 8 50 amp sensors in here, and then an accessories box. So what I'm going to do now is I'm slowly powering down the rack. As you can see, some stuff still running here. We still have Prometheus to turn off, and then we can start cutting the power to the house. So I'm going to do that next. Then I'm going to go outside and I'm going to flip the breaker, the main breaker, to the house to make sure all the power to the house is shut off. And then we'll come back and we'll start installing them. I'll show you how I'm going to do it. Now, since there's not going to be any power on when we come back into the house, I want to make sure I've got a flashlight with me. So let's go start turning everything off inside the house. Let's start with our panel. We'll start at the top and work our way down. So these lines are the ones I was telling you about. That one and that one will zap the shit out of you if you were to touch them. They are, yeah, they're live. So I could turn them off here, but they're still going to be live up to here. It just turns them off on the bus bar down there. So let's get started. Let's turn everything off. Alright, so all the circuits appear to be off or tripped, one of the two. Yeah, looks like everything's off. Alright, let's go out to the panel. Alright, so yeah, there you go. Isn't it lovely? Yeah, it's lit up. Everything's plugged in. Everything's working. I must say, it was very easy to set up. So here are my two main... These are amp clips. They measure the wattage, the amperage going through the wire. So there's the main lugs, L1 and L2. And then I had to tie into a breaker here with some Wagos and basically get power to run down here to the Emporia. You need 2-phase plus a neutral. It'll work with 3-phase power. That's what the blue wire is for, but I'm not using that. And then you basically come along and you put ampere clips, monitoring clips on each circuit you want to monitor. This is why I went through all the trouble to label all of my breakers earlier. And you end up with this hot mess. So it is working. So now the question becomes... Do I want to try and tuck everything into this panel, or do I want to try and drill a hole in this panel and let these wires come out and then mount the Emporia box on the wall outside of the panel? That's what I'm leaning on doing, because all of the wires are more than long enough, as you can see, to where I could put the Emporia over here, or I probably will put it over here because it's less likely to be damaged. And there should be a hole or two I can knock out down here in the bottom of the panel. But the point of all this is today I turned the power off at the main and then verified across the leads that we had no power coming in here. Didn't have any issues. And then it was getting late. The spouse came home. The air conditioners had been off for a couple hours or an hour. And, you know, he wanted to watch TV and relax. So I... turned all the power back on and then started logging all the connections in here and setting them up, and I did it all from my phone. I already had the ammeter clips on here before I turned the power back on, because I don't like sticking my hands into a panel with the power on. And then I'll tie everything up, we'll make it look neat, and then I'll show you what it looks like.
Now you can see from the looks of my table, my project list has not gotten any smaller. If anything, it's gotten bigger, and I still haven't put the stuff away that I need to, because I've been busy. You know, I've been busy doing electrical thingies. Yeah, anyway, so you can see what a rat's nest we have in this panel. Now, it is organized chaos, and I did, believe it or not, I took my time. Now, the reason I went ahead and turned the power off to the panel is because, as you saw in those two main leads up at the top of the panel, those are each live loads, 120 volt live feeds on those. And because of the way I had to put the little ammeter connectors on there, the little clips, the white things, the white little clips, to measure the current coming through that wire, I wasn't comfortable doing that with that circuit being live. It is live now that I've got everything hooked up. So I went ahead and hooked everything up with the panel turned off with no power to it, just for safety reasons. because I knew I would have to move some stuff around. You're also required to wire into, we have in the United States what's typically called two-phase electric for the consumer. That's two 120 volt legs and a neutral wire. That gives us 200, if we combine the two legs together, we get 240 volts. If we separate them with a neutral, we get 120 volts on each side. So this little Emporia thingy here also requires that we provide it with electrical power from each phase of our electrical panel. So it needs two 120 volt legs. Now this one, for those of you in the commercial environment that own a business, we typically have three-phase for commercial. This will work on that. It'll do through triple phase, believe it or not. So keep that in mind. Mine's only two-phase, so I only had to hook up the black and the red. And black and red are your sequence of hot leads in the U.S., and then white is always neutral, and then green is ground. I don't know about over in the U.K. or in Europe, the different wiring standards. But anyway, so once I hooked that up, plugged it into the bottom, you have to have it on two separate breakers. In other words, one breaker from one side of the load, and one breaker on the other side of the load. And they include the little wire nuts and stuff to hook it all up, and because you have to take the wire out of your breaker, insert this other wire here, and then you take the two wires that you took off of your breaker, the one wire and the one wire from to power up this device, and you wire nut them together. No, I don't like wire nuts. I never have. I use Wago connectors, and they're little clips. They're UL approved, and they're okay to go in a panel. And you basically insert the wires into them, then you snug down this clip on them. I just find them easier to use and more reliable than wire nuts, but I digress. So that's what I use. So once I was comfortable that everything was done right, and I chose, keep in mind you've only got 16 of these clamps, so I had to choose 16 breakers that I wanted, or 16 circuits I wanted to monitor. Now my panel will hold about 25 breakers, so you can see where I might, or 24, so you can see where I might have a little trouble choosing. But I don't need to monitor how much current the stove uses, really. I just don't. It's not that big of a deal. I'm not going to be running the stove off of solar, so I really couldn't care what the load is. It's not gonna add into my calculated load for the house. What I'm interested in is stuff like my air conditioning, my anything with a pump on it, like my pool pump. The water heater, not so much, but you'll see it's one of the devices I hooked up because I was curious about how much power that uses. I don't have an electrical furnace. I have mini splits, so that's covered. And then I wanted to monitor how much power my refrigerators were using. I have two of them, so it'd be good to know how much power I need to set aside in case of a power failure to power those two refrigerators to keep my food cold. And you've got to have a calculation in order to do that. So now you're starting to see where this thing comes in handy. Things like plugs and sockets and outlets and stuff like that, because all these vampire loads add up. So then I went back outside and restored power to the panel, and then came inside and started turning my circuits on one at a time and getting the power back up in the house. So once I get the power back on, I powered up everything back in the house. I verified that the Emporia was indeed getting power, and then I proceeded on to, now you have to have a phone to do this, either an iPhone or an Android phone, because it's got Bluetooth in the device. You have to stand within 5 or 10 feet and claim the device as your own, and then set up create an account on Emporia, because it is a web-based account. Set that up with Emporia. They give you a confirmation code, and then bing bang boom, you're connected. Now typically I don't like any phone-based software. I'm not a big fan of apps, especially not on a phone, and mainly that's because I'm old and I don't see so well anymore. But I have this nice large Motorola phone, and actually it wasn't bad at all. I was able to get around in the interface and get everything labeled, and you're about to see that. We'll go to the computer here and I'll show you how easy it was to label everything. Let's go over here to the computer and take a look at what I've got set up.
All right, so what you're seeing is the app. You're going to need, they don't make an app for the PC or for the Mac for that matter. So you're going to need either an Android or an iPhone in order to run this, or you're going to need to do what I did and download a program that allows you to run Android apps under Windows called BlueStacks 10, I believe it's called. And then basically you go into the App Store on that application and load it, and then this is what you get. So, yeah, it's not real pretty to look at, but it's easy to get around in. So basically, you give your site a name. Let's start up here at the hamburger menu. You go in here and you can set up how you want your units of measurements to read. I've told mine to do it in watts. You could do it in currency, money, monetary value if you wanted to. You can even do it in carbon credits, whatever the hell those are. Come back down here, go to your account. You can manage your devices here. You can check your notifications. You can put your household info in here. For example, under household info, you have your utility rate. And mine should be, now you can manually enter it, or you can put the cost in there that they say it is. That is not true though. My electric rate has gone up, so I'm going to manually enter it. And I'm going to go, I think we're paying 11 cents per kilowatt hour now. Yeah, let's get that decimal in the right place, Joe. So I changed that to 11 cents per kilowatt hour. You can put your billing date in here, your location, your time zone, the square footage, type of home, number of residents, your heat source, your air conditioning source, whether or not you have a swimming pool, hot tub, or an electric vehicle. Let's see. And then the meat and potatoes of the thing is actually adding devices. So come down here to manage devices. Now, the first time you set it up, you have to add a device through here, and then it tells you what are you plugging in, an Emporia VUE Gen 2 or a smart plug. I just I told it the Emporia VUE 2, so to get out of that, just come back to manage devices. Now, so I've got all my circuits. Now, it's weird the way they number these things on the device, on the Emporia device. They don't have the numbers stamped for each circuit on the side of the device. They don't even have a number. But on my device, it began with the right-hand side. Port number 1 was the top right. And then port number 16 was the top left, I believe. So your mileage might vary. So, for example, circuit 1, you just simply click on it, you give it a name. You tell it the type of circuit it is and whether or not you need a multiplier. So, for example, these are my choices under the type of circuit I have. I just put that on room multi-use circuit. That's fine. This is for my living room plugs on my left living room left wall. Click on save and boom, it's in there. Same thing with all the others. Now, when you get to an appliance that is 220 volts or 240 volts that is taking up 2 breaker slots, you need to put the ammeter around one of the 120 volt legs of the air conditioner, and then you need to use what's called a circuit multiplier and double the wattage measurement on it so you get accurate readings. That's only if it's a 240 volt circuit. For example, one of my air conditioners, my water heater is a 240 volt breaker. So they even tell you here, change the multiplier to 2. And then once you get your devices set up, they start reporting immediately whether you have your devices set up or not. Once you plug something in, even if you don't have it named, it'll show up as circuit 1, circuit 2, etc. Now, I've been running my system about a day now. So I've actually collected some data. And forgive me, I don't know how long historically it keeps data. It's cloud-based, so I just don't know. I also know that you can use this with Home Assistant, that they do have, not the Emporia people themselves, but there is a plugin for this Emporia system, and we'll be visiting that at a later date. But so if I wanted to see my total usage, I just come up here to total usage, and it'll tell me my peak demand, my usage for September, and my consumption as of for today, I guess at 2 p.m. But you'll see I can drill down. I can go look at the second, the minute, the hour, the day, the week, the month, and for the year. So yeah, it gives you a lot of data. And then I can drill down, and you can see right now, for whatever reason, my server rack is using more power than my AC units. Isn't that funny? That's how frugal those AC units are. So let's go to the server rack, and you can see, if I do it by hour, let's do it by minute, you'll see how many watts I'm using by the minute. Now that's my server rack, my workstation here, a bunch of stuff is on one circuit, and a few lights or ancillary devices. And here it is. You'll see when it came online was yesterday. And here it is broken out by day. So yeah, now you see why I want to convert my rack over to run off solar. And then I can go back and I can look at the AC in the studio, how many watts it's using, how many watts over the hour. You can see it dips down in the early morning and raises back up, and then day to day, weekly average, monthly, etc. So the software as it is right now is functional. All right, you can see I'm getting some good data out of here. I can see how many kilowatt hours I'm using during a day. That'll help me determine what my demand is going to be. And yesterday was a hot day, so you can see my demand was pretty high. But the software does have some issues with it. Now, it hadn't crashed or anything. The first issue I would say is they need to make a web-based application for Mac and Windows users. You know, something we can log into a web interface and have a nice, pretty Ajax or Java interface to get around in and be able to export data. That would be one of my things, especially for what you're paying for this unit. The Android app, as you can see, is fine. It works. It's functional. It's easy to figure out. But they definitely need to make an app for the PC or for the Mac or a web-based app.
So you've seen the end results. You've seen me wire the panel. You've seen me talk to you, or you've heard me talk to you about properly labeling your circuits. I'm the king of cheap, you know that. I don't spend money willy-nilly unless I think I'm going to get something out of it. I think the $170 I spent, with the help of you lovely subscribers as well, was money well spent. Data is indispensable in making really good decisions. When I'm going to be putting the kind of money out like I'm going to be putting out for solar, and you will be, because this shit ain't cheap, folks. So I think that $170 spent to gather this data and help me be more frugal with my electricity and conserve on it is not a bad thing. We've all gotten, my father and mother were great about that. They paid the bills every month. They looked at the bills. They knew what they cost. So my father was forever going around, turn those damn lights off. And the man wasn't wrong. We were more, I think, conservative back then than we are now when it comes to things like electricity and water and whatnot. So there's nothing wrong with being, economical and frugal, because that's money you can take and put into savings or stock market or your 401k or whatever. Spend your money wisely, and this will help me do that. So, is it a good fit for you? I don't know, especially if you're not DIY inclined like I am. You could pay, I don't know, $200 or $300, maybe $400, it would cost you to have an electrician install this in your panel. So there you go, folks. We hope you found the video entertaining and informative as always. Please give us a big thumbs up down below. Leave your comments down in the comments section. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and click that notification bell to be notified of new videos when they come out. Recommend us to your friends, anybody you think who might be interested in what we do here. Donate if you're so inclined. PayPal, Patreon, YouTube join function, that kind of thing. Or just be a damn YouTube premium member. It's $15 a month. It's money well spent. You get no ads in your YouTube videos. You can download your YouTube videos of your favorite creators and watch them later. And we get a cut. Yes, for those of us who are monetized, we get a little bit of money from that. So if your Patreon and PayPal aren't your bag of chips, then use the YouTube join function as well. So thanks for coming to see us, and please don't forget, we'll see all of you on the other side.